In this lesson, we'll add the thrusters to our ship. So we don't really have any reference for this on our image planes because it's in the back, but they're going to be pretty simple shapes. So we'll start with a polygon, and let's just start with a cylinder. Let's bring it back, and let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees in the X. And we can go ahead and increase the radius. Okay, so basically we want 3 of these. So we'll start with the one that's going to be up here. Let's kind of give it a little bit of height. Can go back in, it doesn't really matter how far. But I want to make it big enough to kind of fill in this gap here. Okay, we also want to have the ability to put more down here. Okay, now because this is so big, I'm going to leave the subdivisions kind of about where they are. If you wanted to actually add a few, you could do that too. I want to make sure to add a subdivision on the cap, and let's actually add a couple. Okay, so at this point I want to shape this a little bit more. So I'm going to go to edge, double click on this edge, the very outer edge, and just push it back a little bit. Create a little bit of shape there. And actually, rather than doing that, I want the bevel to go in the other direction. So you can see how it's kind of pointing out here. I want it to actually point in, so I'm going to actually pull this out a little bit. So it creates this sort of a bowl type of a shape. Okay, let's go ahead and select all the polygons in the center here. And going to wireframe, I can see that I've selected some polygons on the side, which I don't want. So I'll deselect those. Let's go ahead and do an extrude. And we'll push these polygons back into our thruster here. Okay, now we can decide whether this is a good width for the actual metal as far as the opening. Maybe the opening is too big or too small. So that's something you can change when you modify your cap division, or you can just come in here and select these points after the fact, and you can kind of scale those down a little bit. All right. So I want to create this detail all the way around the edge, and so to do that, we're going to use that option we looked at earlier, the keep faces together. And so I'm going to select all of these just by clicking, shift, double clicking to select that entire loop. And then let's turn off keep faces together, and let's extrude, and let's pull this geometry out. Okay, and let's actually go ahead and scale it down a little bit. And just scale it overall. So you can see it gives us that nice repeating sort of pattern there. All right. And we can stick this out as far as we can see from the side here. And then we need a couple other ones. So we'll go ahead and duplicate this, move it down, and move it over, and kind of into position. And we'll just do one side because we're going to be mirroring everything over a little bit later. And maybe we want to kind of push this one in just a little bit, so we got a little bit of an offset there. And if you wanted to add some detail to the sides of this, you could. All right. Now we also need some geometry to just kind of fill in the back. Okay. And I'm just going to use a cube to do this. You could also, if you had part of this, you could use that as well. But I just want to have some sort of filler geometry in here, so I'm going to go ahead and scale this up, just so the back end is not just empty. And if you wanted to come in and add some divisions to that, change some of the subdivisions so that you can shape it a little bit more and maybe smooth it, you could do that too. Okay. You could also come in and actually, another option would be to select a curve. So you could fill this in with a cube, or we could take our curve, and let's turn on our curves. We could take this curve here, okay, and let's go ahead and duplicate it, move it out, and I want to make it completely straight. So I can take those points, just select those points, and if we turn on our grid, I can just snap all the points to the grid, and that straightens it up. And then I can just go to surfaces, and let's do a planar. and then center the pivot and take that planer and just push it back in. So that's another way to go about it. Okay, of filling in that back. You just want kind of something to block the light, basically. Okay, and you also probably want to do the same thing up here, and you could use the same technique if you wanted to. Okay, we also want to have a little piece of geometry, kind of a little Y kind of a piece, and so I can maybe scale this thruster down a little bit so we have room. And let's go ahead and bring in a cube, drag it back here, and let's scale it up a little bit. And then I want to give it a couple of divisions. So along the width, we'll give it 2 divisions. And let's go ahead and delete half of it. Let's take these faces and move them out so it's a little bit more of a square type of a shape. Okay, let's create another cube. And we'll go ahead and bring this up. And I want it to be about the same level as this one. So we'll come to the side view and just kind of match it up a little bit. Okay, I'll move it out a bit. And I want to take this one and actually kind of rotate it a little bit. So something more like this. All right, and now let's take both of these and let's go ahead and combine those. So we're going to go to polygons and make these one polygon object. So we'll go to mesh combine. Let's delete our history. And now we can start to connect up these pieces. So if we want to come in here and connect up some of these edges, so we could take this edge, rather this edge, and we could bridge between those. You can do the same thing here. Okay, and then I want to actually do the same thing back here. And to be able to see this, let's go ahead and isolate our view. Let's take this edge and bridge that. Okay, and same thing here. Okay, we'll go ahead and make this a bit thinner. All right, and now let's take this face and extrude it back a little bit, repeat that, and push it back, and then we'll delete that face. So we end up with something like that. And then here we can do the same thing. Extrude this back a little bit, repeat, extrude it back, delete the face, and I'm also going to delete the faces that it's created on the interior here because we are going to be mirroring this over. Now we can take our insert edge loop tool, start to tighten these areas up a little bit. Okay, wherever we want that tightness to be. And let's go ahead and mirror this over. So mesh mirror geometry in the -x direction. Okay, now if we hit 3, we get something like that. Okay, and you can see where we've got to finish up. You can see where that line has stopped. Okay, and so we would need to come in now and go ahead and use our insert edge loop tool here. And then we can take these points and merge them together. Do the same thing here. And just make sure there's no interior faces there that are giving us issues. Okay, and then you need to fix up a little bit over here. You can see where those lines haven't carried all the way across there. So we would need to fix that as well. Insert edge loop. Same thing there. And again, just selecting those vertices. Edit mesh and merge. Same thing here. So you just want to merge those together, and just be careful you don't have any points selected that you don't want to actually be merged. And you can check by smoothing and see how that actually, if there's any other issues there. Okay, Now you need to kind of either scale this down or move that little piece around, but just wanted to create kind of a little bit of a different piece in there, and we can take this and make it a bit smaller if we want to. If we want those thrusters to be a little bit more prominent. Okay, so that's just one way that we can take a couple of polygon objects and combine them together. You can also, for kind of ease of, I don't know, user friendliness, or to be able to kind of consolidate some of the things, you can take, for instance, these two and just combine those into a single object. We'll delete the history. So now they're one object. They're not connected, but they're considered one polygon object, so you can do that. You could also come up here and take all three of these grill pieces and combine those. Again, deleting our history, so now we've got one single object. So on some of those pieces, it may make sense for you to combine those. You can always go back and separate them, which will take them back into their individual pieces. Okay, so we've got the thrusters done. The next thing that we want to do is build a little turret and gun underneath our ship. Got to be able to protect ourselves. So we'll go ahead and take a look at how we can use a revolve to create that.